Hey, thanks everybody. Thank you very much for joining us again for another episode, another edition of Dad Deleted. It's where we talk about parental alienation and you and your kids or someone else and their kids. Um, but we just want to talk about this. And we're going to talk about it. I talk about it from my perspective. I am an alienated dad who lost his kids, one custody, one custody a second time, went from having every other weekend to 50-50, and then from 50-50 to everything but one weekend a month. And parental alienation still did us in because the court system, they couldn't or wouldn't step in and do what they really needed to do. We'll talk about that down the road a little bit, but ultimately that's what we're going to get to. We're going to get to the fact that we are going to have to understand that without strong judges involving very competent and very specifically competent mental health professionals into the equation, they're not going to stop this. And heads up, I hope there are some attorneys out there listening to this, especially family law attorneys. I hope there are some family court judges that are watching this. And by the way, if you have any friends, if you have any acquaintances who are family court judges or family court attorneys, divorce or custody attorneys, please forward this to them, because those guys need to have it and listen to it and understand it more than anybody. Because if we don't have them in the breach, if we don't have them in the gap for us, then you can spend a lot of money. And boy, I did. And we'll talk about it. I'll tell you at some point, I'll tell you how many dollars I spent, how much money was spent on attorneys. And I'll give you a hint. It's more than $100,000. I'll tell you that much. It's a lot more than that. It's not $1 million. It's not $500,000, but it's a bunch. And so for those of you that say, well, if you have enough money, and by the way, I'm not rich, okay? But we sacrificed, and a lot of money went to attorneys. I bought a lot of boats. But it didn't help. Because ultimately, if you don't have judges that are willing to make the hard choices and to step outside the box and understand that when you're dealing with severe alienation cases, that standard orders and standard process and standard procedure and, steady as she goes, and we're going to make little incremental changes, it's not going to work. If anything, it actually empowers the alienating parent and emboldens them. They know, and if they have a good attorney, and by good attorney, I mean a person who's willing to bend the truth or not look at it at all, they can wait you out. It's like in the old days. They were going to siege a castle. They didn't have to defeat the army. They just had to make sure that no more food got in, and they'd starve them out. And unfortunately, that is a tactic that is used in family court. Now tell me that's good for the kids. Tell me that dragging these cases out for years. In my case, we started in 2015 on the custody part of the case, on changing custody in 2015. It ended at the end of 2019. So you tell me that's good for the kids in any way, shape, or form? And I get it. Judges are conservative. Courts are conservative by nature. However, they had no less than, in our situation, 4 separate mental health professionals tell them that parental alienation was going on. And by the way, One of them was the court's own court-ordered PhD. And my side, we didn't even have a choice on who it was. They picked them. The judge with the other side's attorney picked this person. And then they went through a 2-3 month investigation, interviewed everybody, and then wrote a 36-page report to the court and said, if something's not done, if something drastic is not done in this situation, this dad is going to lose his relationship with his kids. That's nearly an exact quote. And at some point in the future, I know you're excited, aren't you? I'm gonna show this. I'm gonna put this document out there. I'll strike all the names, of course, but I'll put it out there, and you can read it. Read it for yourself. So, last episode, I was talking about just the highly contentious nature of the proceedings of just the day-to-day trying to co-parent. And by the way, there wasn't a lot of co-parenting. The one thing that I forgot to say in that episode, and I just don't want to let it go without saying it, is as I'm doing these episodes, I'm reviewing. I'm going back and looking at a lot of data. I'm looking at emails and I'm looking at documents, and I'm refreshing my memory of things. And one of the things that sadly I had to refresh my memory about was just how involved I was in the back and forth, in the bickering and the tit for tat, right? And I would say this: just don't. Just don't. If you want some mental health advice from a parent who's gone through this, and you've got this other parent on the other side who wants to go tit for tat with you, who wants to just pick you apart, just take the advice that my first good attorney and my last attorney in Texas, this is what he said: just because she sends you an email doesn't mean you have to respond. I know, it's genius, right? I mean, it's out there. I mean, that's some wild information to be given somebody. But it's true. Just because this person wants to engage you and wants to get you into this back and forth, you're the idiot if you choose to do it. Because I got news for you. Just like trying to convince the hardcore Trump guys that he's evil and horrible, right? Which maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Or trying to convince the hard left guys that Bernie is a complete lunatic for wanting us to spend, 30 or 60 trillion dollars, right? That we don't have. Either way, right? You're trying to convince people that are never going to come to your side. Dave Rubin was talking with Dennis Miller on his podcast. I believe that was just last week. By the way, both of those guys I recommend. Dave Rubin, the Dave Rubin Report. Check him out. Dennis Miller has a podcast and a show, I believe. But two guys that are pretty level-headed and I think both have points. I disagree with them and agree with them on different things. But one of the things Dennis Miller said on Dave Rubin's podcast was, hey, I don't feel like I have to try and change people's minds anymore, because most people, you can't change their mind. Most people are locked into wherever they are. And I can tell you right now, a parent who is alienating, there is no point in arguing with this person. There is no point in trying to use logic or rational thought or critical reasoning. You might as well be banging your head against a brick wall, because that's exactly what you're doing. So you think you're going to try and get someone to see the light, to maybe even just agree to disagree, whatever it is, right? Just come to some sort of a agreement or some sort of standoff where, hey, you have your thoughts and I have my thoughts, and I'm going to let you go and you let me go. Nope, that's not going to happen. So just don't fight, except when it's required and when you've got something that you can earn, right? I'm trying not to say right. Spend your time focusing on your kids. And if you're going to fight, or if you're going to argue, or if you're going to try and make a point, make that point in court. Because that's the only place it's going to count. Because that's the only place where you can hold them accountable. Because I can tell you right now, you could catch them in 1,000 lies, but if it's just you and them, they'll deny it. They'll say, I never said it. I don't remember it that way. That's not how I recall it. But if you lock them into a story in a deposition, you lock them into a story in court, and then now you've got a third party. You've got a judge. And the judge, there's no agreeing to disagree with the judge. The judge is going to say, wait a minute, you said this. Where's your proof? Or you said this didn't happen. He's showing that it did happen. What do you have to say about that? Because previously you said it didn't happen, but it did happen. Now they've got to answer, and they can't just tell the judge to go pound sand. They can't tell the judge, well, that's just your way of looking at it. I've got a different way. No, that's not how it works. So save the, right fighting for where it matters in court, and just let most of the stuff go. So let's talk about resources. And that's what I promised you. And 12 minutes and 41 seconds into it, here we go. These are some of the resources that I picked up over the years, books that I read more than once. These are all good books by good authors, by good professionals, experts, people that are in the fight. And so let's talk about, first of all, and I'll put it back up here, again, Dr. Richard Warshak, Divorce Poison, the first book I ever bought, first book I ever read, that made me aware of what was going on. And it reads like a playbook. If you are involved in a situation where you're dealing with severe parental alienation, you will swear that your ex-spouse bought that book and then used it as a playbook. That's exactly how you will feel. When I read that book the first time, which was in late 2013 or early 2014, I read that book and I was convinced that she bought the book and she was just following it. Matter of fact, I was a little angry at Dr. Warshak because I felt like, man, he laid down the game plan. But in reality, it's just that this behavior, this cycle of behavior, this path that alienating parents go down, it is so consistent that they're able to document it, and it's going to hit home with everybody. And again, and we're going to talk now about just really quickly. So this book, it's the High Conflict Custody Battle, and this is by Dr. Amy Baker, Dr. Michael Bone, and Brian Ludmer. I've had conversations and email back and forth with both Dr. Baker and Dr. Bone, and both excellent resources. For example, in this book, they talk about, I think there are 17 keys or 17 things to look for in a situation like that, where you've got parental alienation, severe alienation. And I can tell you that we didn't have all of them, but I think we had 14. I could give you examples of 14 of the 17 things they talked about. So it was a lot. The next thing, this is Dr. C.A. Childress. He's out of California. This is his book, Foundations. And so It's an attachment-based model of parental alienation. Dr. Childress is doing a ton of work, a ton of great work in this field. He's a driving force. And I can tell you one of the things that I respect about him is that he looks at, so in the 80s, there was the person who originally, if you look up parental alienation, you will see Richard Gartner's name attached to this. And really, he's the one, I believe, that, I don't know if he coined the term parental alienation, but he's definitely the person who moved the ball down the field. The problem with what Gardner was doing was that he was trying to create this entire new pathology, right? When in reality, the pathology of parental alienation already exists in already defined terms and structure of psychology. And so when Dr. Childress says this is an attachment-based model, this is it's a family attachment disturbance. It's already documented. And so Dr. Childress's position is, look, we don't have to reinvent the wheel or invent a new wheel. We have everything we have. We have everything we need already documented in psychology. We just need to use the methods that we already have. We need to use the pathology that we already have, and let's attack it that way. Let's solve the problem that way. And by the way, all these are available on Amazon, and I will share links in the comment section below. This is a little booklet, again, by Dr. Childress. This is for you to give to your attorney. And I would also suggest giving this to any mental health professionals that you're working with. It's an attachment-based model of parental alienation. It's professional consultation, and he basically just breaks down information that they should know and tries to put you on at least, I guess, a level playing field. I will say this, and Dr. Childress, I believe, would say the same thing. If you and your children, or if just your children are in therapy, and you're dealing with severe parental alienation, standard therapy does not work. It will not work based on the type of psychological issues that are going on and the personality disorders with the other parent that you're more than likely dealing with. And so anyway, again, these books will talk about that and explain that. And the last thing I've got from him is this is something that he had done. Again, this is based off B.F. Skinner, single case AB protocol, assessment and remedy. He actually has a remedy. And then beyond this, I know Dr. Childress has been involved. They have got in the Houston family courts right now, they have got a pilot program that uses a lot of his work, where what they're trying to do is, if they see a case coming into family court and divorce and custody, and it ticks some of these boxes, right? All right. So if they see a case that looks like it potentially is parental alienation, severe parental alienation, they will pull that case out and then send it through this pilot program, where all they're trying to do is stop it before it happens, or at least arrest it. And so they get the family, they get the kids into therapy, the proper type of therapy. They get both the parents into education and therapy, and then the parents are responsible to the courts to make sure that they are following proper process and procedure, so that they are not, one of them is not alienating the other from the children. And I believe that there are some pretty strong consequences if a parent chooses to continue down that road. And I can tell you, in my case, I never lost in court any sort of I mean, we lost motions and things like that. But we never lost any time that we went for any sort of a hearing for custody. We never lost an appeal when the other side would appeal because we won. The other side would appeal. We never lost an appeal. But it didn't stop. It didn't stop Mom. So sometimes even if you have things going right, it's not going to be enough unless the court is willing to make really tough decisions. And you just got to pray at some point that they do. The last book I'll talk about, and again, if you are involved in a case, you may run across an attorney who will tell you, and possibly even a mental health professional, but specifically attorneys will tell you, some attorneys will say, oh, this parental alienation thing is nothing but a scam. What it is it's a parent, it's a dad. That's what they say, which right away tells you that they're on the lunatic fringe because they have so little understanding and depth of knowledge about what's going on. They don't even, either they don't know or they're being willfully ignorant of the fact that there is a vast number of moms who are victims of parental alienation. So which makes their statement, which I'm about to say to you, that much more ridiculous, which is, well, parental alienation is a construct of these men who abuse their wives and they abuse their children. And this is just a way for them to cover it up and to divert attention from the real crime, which is that I guess every man on the planet, except for this guy, abuses their wife or their ex-wife and their children. So all men are evil, I guess. Is that what he's saying? Minus himself, I suppose. Oh, it must be good to be that good. But here's the thing. The truth of the matter is, this is real, and you can pretend it's not. I mean, it might make you wealthy to pretend that it's not. I could probably sell a bunch of t-shirts and books saying the earth is flat. Doesn't make it so. Boy, I bet I'd have a strong following though. Doesn't make it true. So anyway, if you have somebody that says something like that, this book, Children Held Hostage, and it is written by Stanley Cloar and Bryn Rivlin. And interestingly enough, this book was published by the American Bar Association, the governing body of attorneys. So their publishing arm seems to think that it's true, or at least it's valid enough to have a book about it. So anyway, those books, I'll put links to them down below. Read them, buy them, read them, understand them, and best of luck to you. You're going to need it. And remember, above all else, love your kids.